Battlefield 2042 is a mess. Hopefully, it's a mess in progress, with its end being better than its beginning. As I've played the game, I've noticed many of the same problems that the community has brought up. I want to talk about them briefly here and give what my buddies and I have thought about this game. Now obviously, you don't have to agree with anything I say here, I just wanted to look at this game from a new perspective. Write your comments down about whether or not you agree with me and why, and whether you disagree with me. I'd love to hear them. I think at this point we need to come to terms with problems that can't or won't be fixed. There are three main ones: specialists, maps, and vehicles. For specialists, I think almost all of us can agree that the specialists were a bad idea and they exist to be a money grab. But at the same time, I don't think this problem will be changed anytime soon, so it's best to get used to it or ignore it and just move on. Then there's the maps. The maps, particularly the conquest maps, are too big, way too big. It shouldn't be the case that a player should have to run upwards of 300 to 500 meters just to get to the next point on the map. This game is not held at loose or any of your other favorite realistic war simulators.
Really large, I always call it massive, huge.
This is Battlefield. And if there are going to be massive spaces between points, there needs to be ways to traverse that space quickly. I'm going to speak more on that later. And then there's vehicles. The vehicles won't be changed. I have seen plenty of complaints already, and they're justified, that there are too many vehicles in the game. And I agree. Half the time, or more than half the time, games are won by each team's vehicles gathering together on separate points to take each one at a time. And the only way to get away from this problem is through a portal game mode, where it's smaller number of players, or by doing rush. Now this being said, it's not like this game is a total dumpster fire, and I know a lot of you may not agree with that. There are problems that will have solutions in the coming months if this game is going to be anything good. The problems that can be fixed. Anti-air rocket damage. This plays into the whole too many vehicles problem. See, the anti-air rockets that we currently have are so weak and have so little effect upon aircraft that almost a quarter of each team has to be armed with stingers to actually take them down. And there are so many gadgets that less than a tenth of each team will actually be running a stinger. So we need to increase the stinger damage or reduce number of vehicles, which of course won't happen. Now then there's transportation vehicles. I think that the best way to fix the issue of massive maps is to make two-man vehicles that have no purpose except getting places. No weapons, fully exposed, but very fast. If we have them despawn after a few seconds once players leave them, then they can respawn at previously friendly-owned bases in order that other people can use them when they spawn on that base. That would shorten the time people have to spend waiting for points to be capped or for seats to open up on transport vehicles. Spawning on any friendly vehicle with a spot in it. Another way to fix the map problem is to allow any teammate to enter a friendly occupied vehicle with spots available in it. That way, each vehicle in the map acts as its own team spawn point, allowing for more dynamic military maneuvers and flanks. Another thing we need is more maps on Portal. This is a problem that I think will be fixed over time, but there are way too few maps in Portal for each game. Portal is going to be the majority of the value of Battlefield 2042, and therefore it needs to have a lot more effort put into it ASAP. More guns in both the main game and Portal. Battlefield games, especially Battlefield 3, 4, and 1, have a bunch of guns, each with their own attachments. And this game noticeably lacks those things in both the main game and the Portal. More guns will be coming, I hope, but they could have dropped the game with a wider array of guns than they did, and they failed to do so. What does this make you feel? That's right, it makes you feel like a kid again, exploring Ocarina of Time for the first time on Nintendo 64, remembering all those precious afternoons of just lazing about and playing the game. What does this make you feel? Correct. Like you're the last hope for a dying humanity. and the only one strong enough to get the job done. Why do you remember it so well? Simple. It complements the game. Now listen to this. What does this make you feel? You see, soundtracks convey something to the player that adds to the experience. The Halo OST, for example, was inspirational, stirring, and deep. Now, whatever soundtrack makes you feel nostalgic for that game is the opposite of what 2042's soundtrack does. The music in 2042 is a metallic grind. It sounds like a dying whale or metal sheets being rubbed together with a microphone next to them. And this one I think everyone has made fun of. Who thought it would be a good idea to make that noise and then put it into a game's soundtrack? It's utterly ridiculous and ought to be straight out removed. And then there's the voice lines.
Sides between Russia and the United States in their
Caught between the last two superpowers as they circle each other, fighting for resources, threatening to draw us into a new kind of war.
Well, that was fun.
The purpose of voice lines in any game is to add character and depth. It's to make the player feel attached or sympathetic towards that character and to resonate with them. But how can I resonate with my character if I see 40 copies of my character all running around me? It totally breaks immersion and confuses me as to whether I'm playing a hero shooter or a massive warfare game. And that's not even touching on the content of the voice lines.
I am not overconfident. I'm just better than everyone else.
And then there's the weapon balance. Now this game, like all new games, had balance issues at launch. At first it was the PP-29 submachine gun, then it was the DM7, and then one patch later it's the PKB LMG. Next time it's going to be a sniping shotgun. Now the UI is terrible. The weapon customization is a product of previous development choices and is not good for a Battlefield game. It takes way too many clicks, is counterintuitive, and to a certain extent off-putting to new players. It shows that there has been not enough time put into that section of the game. And then finally, there's no scoreboard. I won't pretend to know exactly why they made this developmental decision. I think it was because they wanted to keep people from having their feelings hurt, or disguise when a game was being stacked, but I can't be sure. Either way, every video game today has some form of score tracking system, especially multiplayer games. It helps guide and confirm for the player that they are doing a good job, gives them that dopamine rush every time they see it, and that they have done well. And 2042 lacks this basic necessity, and it shows. And then there are problems that are just opportunities. I think as a group, as a community, we all need to reevaluate what Conquest game mode for 2042 really is. Conquest in 2042 is not a man-to-man warfare situation. There's too many long distances, too many vehicles, too much space. Rather, Conquest should be taken as a game mode to support vehicles and teammates while running all over the map. I think we as a group would have much more fun playing that mode if we left the AI to do the running around the map like chickens with their heads cut off, and then we could play in or around the team vehicles. Either way you slice it, it's a huge loss to the Battlefield series that Conquest isn't all that it could have been. And I think Portal is an underestimated gem. Portal seems to be the game dev's true love letter to the fan base and not the main game. Others have said the same thing about Portal, and I think the same. I would tend to agree with some who say that Battlefield 2042 was designed to be a battle royale and not a Battlefield installment. Rather, the Portal game mode is meant to make up for that by letting us, the players, choose how to play. Given time and effort, the Portal is what will make Battlefield 2042 worth $60, not the main game. It's in Portal that we design the game we think Battlefield 2042 was meant to be, not what DICE put out. Sure, it will take time and effort, but what other game in the industry has handed the players the ability to do whatever they want with the very codes and logic of the game itself? Closing remarks. As with much of the gaming industry at this point in time, it seems like more and more games are coming out half done, with the dev team moving on to the next game without actually finishing the first game. I think it's important to remember in this time that every dev team is governed by investors and people over them who tell them when the game must come out. I think in most cases, the dev teams are getting a bad rap for what is really the fault of investors who have no business in game development. I feel that most game devs love what they do and do it because they love making good games, not half-done ones. So I think we all need to remember this and show patience and love to those who are caught between their bosses and us, the fans. If you enjoyed this, please subscribe and like the video, and share it with your friends, and thank you for listening. Goodbye.